Everyone who's here in person, who's watching live or listening to the recording. I'm so honored you're here. Want to dedicate the shiur to the continued safety and return of all of our hostages, all our chayalim, healing for everyone who needs it. Also to my Savta, Chana Chaya Bat Shprinsa, and her husband for her yahrzeit, which is this week. So I'm dedicating this year to her. Okay, let's jump right in. It's the end. We are finishing up the third Chumash Vayikra with the last two Parshiot, Behar and Bechukotai. And then next week we are beginning Bamidbar in the desert. Okay. You know, I woke up, I was gonna say how much I noticed lately that my anxiety is so much better. And then I woke up today with anxiety. Sometimes I just wake up and then I need 15, 20 minutes to breathe, and I didn't have that time today. Okay, l'chaim. Thank you to my amazing husband for making this siftach coffee. Okay, Behar-Bechukotai. So we're going to focus a lot on Behar and a little on Bechukotai. I noticed some really awesome connections to anxiety in the Parsha, into trust. We're learning today about leaning into our trust, deepening our trust, healing all the anxieties, all of it, trying to heal our anxieties, and lots more, and the paradox of humility and pride coming out of Pesach. Okay, so an overview of what we're talking about in this Parshios. Behar focuses mostly, Behar means, the name of the Parsha Behar means that Hashem spoke to Moshe on Har, which mountain? Sinai. And it's the laws of Shemitah. So most of Behar, pretty much the entire Parshas Behar, is the laws of the Shemitah, and more specifically in the Yovel. So the laws of Shemitah are every 7 years, we don't work the land gets a break, right? And the land gets a rest. I love that in Israel, anyone who works for the government, at least in the educational system, takes a sabbatical. I think everyone needs a sabbatical. Yeah, you get a paid sabbatical where you don't have to work and you just replenish your resources. And I think all moms, we all just need a sabbatical. We all need a year to just rest, right? Just what
about nurses?
And so it's very reminiscent of these. So we have the laws of there's every 7 years the land rests, and then every 7 cycles of 7, we have the Yovel, where in the Yovel year, the Jubilee year, first of all, there's another year of Shemitah. So for 4 years, you basically have to rely on the produce of the 6th year. And in Yovel, all property returned to its original owner. So if anyone sold a house, you basically could only sell a house for up to 50 years. And so a house sold in the 48th year would be sold for much less because it has to be returned in 2 years. Any slave sold to a Jew or non-Jew would return, or a ger toshav, a non-Jew living, and would be freed in the 50th year. Even if he had just been sold the year before, he would automatically be freed, and all land will return to its original owner. And so it was this Jubilee, Dror Yikra, it's the freedom time, and it was that deep reminder that nothing truly belongs to us to sell or to own permanently. It all belongs to Hashem. Everything ultimately returned to Hashem. It's that releasing control. And that's what Shemitah was about as well. Shemitah is you're working the land for 6 years. You're feeling proud of your accomplishments. And Hashem says, ultimately, it's not you, it's me. Look, you're going to leave the land. It's for a few reasons. It's to let the land rest, because the land gets weak after working it hard for 6 years. And it's totally relinquishing control. And the Parsha says, and you will ask, I think I brought this to you, you will ask, what will we eat? And ma nocha, look in your source. Bashana hashvis, what will we eat in the 7th year? Vehein lo nizra, if we're not planting, we're going to starve. There's no import and export during those days. It's not like nowadays where we could go to another place and bring food. There were times in Russia where the Tsar killed all the farmers, and people, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, starved to death because there was no one farming the land. There's no import and export, so we rely on this for our survival. And so Hashem says, what will be? And Hashem says, "V'nasati b'chasi ba'aretz." I'm going to put my blessing in the land in the 6th year, so that it will produce enough produce that you working it in the 7th year to sustain you for the 7th year. And then for the 8th year, because you only start planting again in the 8th year, and it takes a long time for it to begin planting. And so you're going to have enough food in the 6th year for the whole 6th year, for the 7th year, and for the 8th year. And then in Yovel, also for the 9th year, because there's a second Shemitah. It's insane. And that's going to teach you that although I command you to work 6 years and to make that vessel for my blessing, ultimately, all your sustenance, just like the man, comes directly from me. And so it's so powerful. It's like this relinquishing control that I think is the cure to anxiety. I was going to say this for the end, but I'll begin with this. The anxiety part, because I woke up today, maybe because I was feeling oh my gosh, my anxiety is cured. I had this moment where I was doing the same Lag BaOmer parade this year and the Lag BaOmer barbecue we do for our shul. And I was so calm the day of. And I remember like the year before, like waking up with a panic attack, trying to control every detail, not breathing, not eating, being nauseous because it was so overwhelming. And now I was just like chilling, doing things like until it started, I had zero like fear. You know, it was no stress. And I was just like, oh my gosh, now I see how like much anxiety took over my life. I remember not being able to breathe for like days before every program. And I just saw that like shift. And maybe because I forgot to like, I'm like, I don't know what happened, you know, Hashem, I don't know what happened, but today I woke up with a little bit of anxiety. And then as I was reading the Parsha, I noticed, so Behar, let's go zoom out a bit. Behar is all about the laws of the Yovel and the Shemitah. Bechukotai, the next Parsha, because it's a joint Parsha, is about Bechukotai is the laws of the blessings and warnings of what will happen if you don't fulfill my Torah and mitzvot. So some people call it the curses. In Chabad, they said there are no curses. Even the warnings are actually blessings themselves. And so if you go in Bechukotai, Hashem says, if you will follow my statutes and keep the Torah and mitzvot, you will have all of these blessings. And if you don't, a whole bunch of consequences or results or things will happen to you. And one of the things it describes in Bechukotai, so seemingly not so connected to Behar, but I noticed that it jumps back. So in one of the admonishments or the warnings of what will occur if you don't fulfill my statutes, suddenly it jumps and it says, you will be banished from your land. And then it says, this is in Bechukotai, Perek 26, Chavav, Pasuk 34. Okay, so it says, basically you will be scattered amongst your lands. Az tirtza aretz eshapsoseha kol yemei hashama. And then the land will make up for all its Shabsoteha, the Shabbases, the Shemitah years that you missed because you didn't fulfill my mitzvahs, you didn't allow the land to rest. You will be forced to leave your land, and now the land will finally have a chance to rest. Kol Yemei Shama, all the years that it's going to be desolate when you are in Galus, when you are exiled. V'atam b'eretz avechem, you are in the land of your enemies. Az tishbas haaretz, finally the land will be able to rest. V'hirtzasa eshabaseh, and she will make up its Shabbos years. So suddenly it goes back to Shemitah. It doesn't say like in the warnings, like if you don't keep the Shemitah at all, but suddenly it says after you'll be desolate, now the land is going to make up for Shemitah. So I see this reconnection to Shemitah, which we learned is all about relinquishing control and leaning into Hashem and trusting that every single sustenance we have is from Hashem, and that the same way, even when we plant, it has nothing to do with our efforts. It's all from Hashem. Also, when we don't plant, Hashem will find a way to sustain us. There's channels. It says it's clearly that Hashem creates a channel for each person to sustain him with exactly what he needs. Not only every person, every animal, every plant, and every leaf has its own channel where its exact sustenance and everything that it needs is given to him. It's good, it's more hidden good, the challenges it needs to grow and to flourish, the resistance it's going to need to develop and grow, everything is given to us. And the Shemitah and even Shabbos, let's go back, Shabbos is given to us as a gift to be able to internalize that trust, to just let go and stop working and creating and thinking it's all me and just allowing Hashem into my life. And on a bigger scale, Shemitah, it's this year to totally let go of our own efforts and to remember that everything and to realize that everything that I do, even when it is my own efforts, is still from Hashem. And then the Yovel is in this even greater way to realize that I don't even own anything. I don't even own my own body. I can't sell myself as a slave because I don't even have control over my own body. Every single thing in my life, I have no control. It's all Hashem's property. My body is Hashem's property. Even my land and my houses that I built myself is not mine to sell. It returns to its own original chuzah that Hashem divided in when he divided the lands amongst the families and the tribes. Nothing is truly mine. And it's this total relinquishing of control that allows us to be filled with trust. And then suddenly I'm reading this Bechukotai with the I don't like to say the warnings of what will happen. And you see this verse that literally is like encapsulates anxiety. It should be like the diagnosis for anxiety is this. What does it say? So you will be banished from your land, God forbid, and the land will finally have its rest. Kol yemei heshama tishbos. All the time it says like it will rest for the time, asher lo shavta b'shavta seichem, when you didn't fulfill the Shemitah and you didn't allow it to rest. And then he says the next pasuk, v'anisharim bechem, and those that survive, whatever famine happened, v'hevesi morecha bilvavam ba'artzos ovehem. I will make fear in their hearts. The radaf osam kol ala nidaf. I will the sound of a leaf will make them fear. They'll hear a leaf rustling against another leaf, and it will cause them to flee. As if the next words are nidaf v'nasu minusas cherev, as if they're running away from a sword. V'naflu ve'in rodef, and they'll be stumbling even though no one is chasing them. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my anxiety. When I'm like panicking and there's actually nothing chasing me. Anxiety is when you feel your body wakes up, or for whatever reason, you're not breathing, and you're feeling as if an enemy is chasing you and someone's trying to like kill, and it's the end of the world disaster, and there's nothing there. There's no real enemy there. It's your own brain, it's your own demons, it's your own body thinking, it's your body like remembering and triggering. Like when we, for example, the best example for all of us here in Israel is even when we're in America, you hear the sound of a siren and your body thinks that there is a bomb coming. And so your whole body is running and being chased. It wants to is in fight or flight or freeze. It was really scary. When I was at the convention, there was a whole bunch there's like groups of girls that come from Israel to the Chabad Shulchas convention. And the sound they used to get quiet in America was like a siren sound. Ooh, they would make the same exact sound. And I heard that like girls from Israel, little girls were like shaking and crying every time they heard that sign. They had to tell the counselors that they can't use that sign anymore. And so that's what it describes, that you're going to run from the sound of a rustling of a leaf as if they're being chased by a sword. And I was like, oh, wow, like that is what anxiety is. Like, I was like, oh, wow, what's the message here? Because first of all, I love it, just described that feeling so well of being like chased by a lion, but you're not. And then your cortisol is pumping. And it takes me like every time I hear like a kid making a siren, my body thinks it's being chased. And that's like, and then the next pasuk says, well, with no one pursuing you, the people are going to stumble over one another as if they're running from a sword. You shall not be, you won't be able to stand your ground before your enemies or your demons. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's what it is now. We're living in, so first of all, I was like, okay, what's the message here? There's got to be a message. I'm really like relating to this. Obviously, at face value, even in its simplest form, these are not, where it's brought down that these are not curses. No one does say that if you don't do this, I will curse you. It's the natural result. If you disconnect from your source, and you don't have that trust in Hashem, and you're not keeping the Shemitah, and then suddenly, like out of nowhere, discusses Shemitah here, like a full Parsha later, without discussing Shemitah, and it reminds you that you didn't keep Shemitah, you didn't have that trust in Hashem. You're taking full control of every detail of my life, right? I'm fully thinking it's on me, it's on my shoulders. I have to, if I don't do this, then this will happen. That's my spiral of anxiety. If I don't do this, and this will happen. I'm in control, and when I'm in control, this is what happens. It's not a punishment. This is the result of not having Shemitah, not being able to relinquish control and trust that it's from Hashem. Then you're going to take it on you, and then you're going to have this, everything you hear, you're going to think it's an enemy coming to get you because everything is you. But if you can separate that and recognize it's all from Hashem, that's really, now I want to make a disclaimer. When the hardest thing to hear when you have clinical anxiety is like, just have more trust in Hashem. It's very triggering when you hear like, oh, just have more emunah and deepen your trust. Sometimes it's like, for me, it was like a medical condition. Obviously, like I would learn shar bitachon and learn emunah, but my body didn't learn. Like my body would still react as if I'm being chased by a lion. So it was very hard for me to hear that. And to like, if someone has clinical anxiety, the answer is yes, trust in Hashem more, but also take medication, go to a therapist, do what the doctor says so that you could heal whatever like chemical imbalance you have going on. And then when it's no longer a clinical issue, then the trust like really like is one of my biggest tools to just like relinquish control and say Hashem is in charge. Whatever is meant to happen will happen. I don't have to freak out about my program. But when I was in a state of clinical anxiety, none of that would help because my body was chemically imbalanced. It wasn't helpful. It didn't translate into my body, into my health. So I think it's important to like have both. You want to like learn and strengthen emunah, but also know that sometimes that might not even help. And if the body needs to be like cured through, just like any other disease, through medication, right? The same way Tehillim won't cure someone who needs to take diabetes medication or any other medication. It might help in addition. Of course, it will help in addition. Of course, it's important. And of course, it will save a life. But they also need to, if they're not taking the medication they need to do, if they need to, etc. So I thought that was just an important side point. Yes. So why did I mention this? Because Shemitah is all about like Hashem giving us an opportunity to internalize our trust. To act on it, to literally create trust as what's the right word for it? To like digest, to like activate it, to use that, make that muscle strong of trust by having to relinquish control. And Yovel and all of these mitzvos are to allow us to send. I thought it was cool the parallel of like 7 cycles of Shemitah of 49, and then the 50th year is Yovel, and we're counting right now. This always is read during the 49 weeks of the 49 days of the Omer, where we're also having 7 cycles of 7, counting the 7 midos. And then the 50th year, it says, is from Hashem. So we can only like do so much. And then the 50th year, Hashem takes over. The 50th level, we learn that our healing, and remember it was last week we spoke about healing our 7 different functions and dysfunctions in our soul. Right, we spoke about and so ultimately we do as much as we can. We have 7 weeks of healing. And then the 50th, Hashem says, can only be completed by Hashem. We relinquish control over full healing. That has to come from above. And that's that 50th day. That's not, we don't count that. Hashem counts, right? That's from Hashem. My takeaways from this idea of anxiety, that anxiety is directly connected to the idea of Shemitah, that Shemitah to me is the cure to anxiety, not the cure to clinical anxiety, but the cure to day-to-day feeling anxious about how we'll survive this war, how we're going to go through the day, just the worries that plague us. Those things, when we have Shemitah and we relinquish that control and we recognize that Hashem has a plan and Hashem is in charge of everything, that is like, will help us through our anxieties. And ultimately, this is the highest thing, is that the whole Bechukotai, and this is the last we're going to probably touch on Bechukotai today, because it's Bechukotai is like the curses. And the Alter Rebbe said when he would read it, that it was all blessings. He said all of it's blessing. There are no curses here. That even the things that seem like they're negative things or curses are actually just a deeper level of brachais that are just too great to come down as direct blessing. So they're packaged in a way that looks like curses, but if you uncover it, and he gave examples, he says that 10 women will bake in bread in one oven, they'll be so poor, and he says what that really means is that your 10 kochot of your soul are going to all be towards echad, a one echad. They're all going to be on fire, baking their emunah towards echad, towards the one Hashem. And he's like, all of these, and he says this is not a Hasidic idea, this is straight up in the Gemara, where it says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's son, he sent his son to go get blessings from the sages, and he came back, and he said, he was distraught, and his father said, what happened? He said, they all cursed me. And he says, what did they tell you? And he starts to list the curses that they said. And he said, those are all blessings. And he goes on to interpret each one. And he says, you will reap but not return. It means that you will have children who will not return your lifetime. And he says, those blessings were so great that they were too great to come out directly as blessings. Sometimes blessings are too high to come in this world for different reasons. There's resistance from the other side. And they come packaged. And really the ultimate that we've been discussing through Chassidut, through all our years of learning together, is that sometimes the deepest blessings come out as challenges, to challenge us, to bring out and but truly for our benefit, that we trust that everything Hashem sends us is only for our benefit, it's only out of His love for us, and even if it seems negative at the moment, it's only there to uncover even greater goodness. Inside, it's a package. We just have to unwrap and see that blessing that Hashem is trying to give us, that sometimes it's packaged in that way in order for us to work to receive that blessing from it. And so anxiety, why did I say this? Because ultimately what Chassidut is saying here and is that even this anxiety that Hashem is saying will happen, that you will be so afraid that the sound of a leaf will make you run like you're running from a sword, even if any of us have that anxiety in our lives, it's ultimately a blessing, just like a deeper blessing than even the revealed blessings that you're going to have. Even when you have that, and hopefully I'm getting to a place where I can see in my life the anxieties and the self-growth that I've been able to come to through what I've been going through for the last 7-8 years of dealing with like not being able to wake up in the morning because I had so much anxiety, like not being able to leave my bedroom in the morning because I had so much anxiety, and like being able to see that as not a curse from Hashem, God forbid, but as something I would never go back and change and say, oh, I wish I didn't have that, because it's only brought me to who I am today. And I could see already so many different blessings that are in my life, that inner growth that I've been able to experience from that. Okay, now getting back to, thank God, Baruch Hashem. So like I have a friend, she says that she wakes up every day and she has a challenging life, and she says, thank you Hashem for the good and thank you Hashem for the bad. I'm like, that's a very high level. I'm working on it, but I try, and it's very like, yeah. Well, this whole idea of Shemitah is all about the land, right? It's all about our connection to working the land, to resting the land. And if you step back to last week's Parsha, where it goes through all of the Chagim and the end of Emor, it describes all the Chagim, and all of our Chagim are also based on the land cycles, right? We do Sukkot by Chag Zman HaKatzir, or Zman HaAsif, when we gather the harvest. Pesach is Zman HaAviv, when things are growing. We have Tu B'Shvat, that's a whole holiday just because the trees are beginning to absorb the water. Shavuot is Zman HaKatzir, that's when we start to harvest, thank you, that's the word, the produce. And so why are we like revolving our cycles around the land? And we learn something really deep about our connection to the earth that we were put on. And we say this every Shabbat, this is in your sources, every Shabbat in Musaf prayer, we say, Yehir etzom lefanecha, Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei avotenu, sheta'aleinu b'simcha la'artzeinu, that you should, please God, that you should elevate us with joy to our land, v'tita'enu b'gvulenu, and you should plant us in our borders. Right, so we have a question. What do you mean plant us in our borders? Right, we're asking Hashem that He should return us, all of us, to our borders. So say v'tachzirenu, to return us. What are we? Plants? Plant us in our borders. And we learn that actually we are just like a seed. We need to be planted it just like a seed needs to be planted in its borders, our neshama is just like a seed. In Chassidut, we learn that we are so similar to a seed. Our neshama is just like a seed, is a tiny little thing, and it grows to be infinitely greater than what it started as. Our neshama is just a tiny spark of Hashem that comes down into this world, is planted into our body, is planted into the earth, into its spot in the earth, and through being planted, it grows into something so much more powerful than what it began, through being in this earth. Our soul above is a part of Hashem. We think it's infinite, but actually through being planted in our earth, it becomes infinitely more infinite than it was prior. And the same way that a seed goes through, in order for a seed to properly grow, it first needs to go through germination. It has to disintegrate. Our neshama also, it has to go through the challenges of life, like the anxieties or there's whatever challenges that Hashem gives all of us, our own package. We go through those challenges not to punish us, God forbid, but it's that disintegration process when we lose, when we fall apart, that we can truly start our rooting and become the greatness that we are meant to be. And so that's the cycle of life. There's so much more that we can learn, but we actually learn, going back to the Yemim Tovim, that our connection to our Judaism and to our bodies is through the land. We're not just here to like ignore the land and just like elevate and be above the land and connect to Hashem. No, Hashem put us in the earth for a reason. And our connection to the Torah is through the earth. Hashem began by describing how he created the earth, and he plants us to be rooted and involved with the earth and to elevate the earth. And so even physically, on the most physical level, the more we're connected to the earth, like if we stand outside in nature and we're planted on the ground, that's like, for me, by the way, one of my biggest tools for anxiety is just going outside and breathing in fresh air, standing barefoot on the ground, or looking at nature. It reminds me and it reconnects me to my neshama, to myself and to my body. It helps me be rooted. And so the land is our, like, being in our land, and any land, the earth that we are put on, it like connects, it reroots us, and we're rooted to ourselves. And like that's why like yoga or anything like done outside is like so grounding. Just sitting at the beach, like the beach day, like it's just so, you remember yourself, you remember your soul when you're in and connected and present with the earth. And so that's what it means, going back to V'tita Einu Bigvulenu, you plant us in our borders. We want to be rooted and planted. And the same way that a plant needs to be rooted, a seed needs to be planted, firmly rooted in order for it to be able to flourish and grow without being shaken down, we also need to develop our roots, and we want to like spread our roots. We want to be planted deeply where we are. And we all have this like feeling of like needing to be planted. And I think like especially one of my, like especially with Olim, I think all of us made Aliyah at some point, that feeling of like needing, when anyone moves to anywhere new, any new city, new country, even a new community, there's like a feeling of being like lost, like and disconnected. And I tell New Olim, like, especially if you don't have family here, like it's okay. We cried for like the first year all the time. Like we just felt so disoriented and disconnected and not grounded because you don't have your roots yet. You need to lay your roots. And so it's okay and normal if you feel so out of sorts until it takes time. It could take a year, it could take half a year, it could take 2 years to fully plant your roots, like to feel rooted, to feel grounded, and to feel like you have a stability, a structure, a foundation to hold you, so that like if something happens, like we had a baby, within a month of being here, we had like one friend. So we felt like, who's gonna like, how are we gonna be, like we just moved, 3 weeks later we had a baby. And so, but then by the second baby, it was like so much less anxiety because we had our roots, we had our support system, we knew the places we were gonna go, we knew the hospitals, we had laid our foundations. And so there's like an element of moving to a new space, of laying your roots, of desiring to like have a deep foundation, to have a connection, to lay your foundation, to build those friendships, relationships, those places, the parks you go to, the stores you go to. Just having that rooting allows you to flourish higher. And when you don't have the rooting, like we have plants that they're like, when we repot them, suddenly the roots have more where to go, and then they double in size within like 2 months. Your roots need to like spread and grow. So we have so much connection to our land. Yeah, so the more rooted we are, the higher we grow. The more decomposed we disintegrate, the stronger we can grow. If a seed doesn't go through that and like resists, that we resist sometimes that like falling apart when things are coming to us. But if a seed doesn't go through that, it can't plant itself. It can't be rooted. And so rather than resist, we could see it as like a yerida letzorach aliyah, as a step necessary for the growth that's going to happen. So our neshama, it says, it's like a seed sent to be planted in this earth, wherever it's sent to lay its roots there. And if it has to move, it can move somewhere else. And so, yeah, I think that was like my connection also to like the anxiety factor, to like not resisting, but knowing that in this falling apart, we're like growing for the future. And also, like, it's so much, I was saying it's so much easier for people who make aliyah when they have roots already here, like someone who laid the foundation for them to be planted. Like, there's a family that, like, set everything up for them. All they have to do is just come and plant their roots. It's just such a softer landing. Okay, so now I'm going to connect this to the name of the Parsha. We already have 30 minutes. Okay, so the name of the Parsha is Behar, which leads to a big question. The Behar Sinai means the mountain of Sinai. And we learn, and I think I brought this to you in your source, that why did Hashem pick Sinai of all the mountains? The Medrash tells us. Exactly.
I'm really small.
Exactly. For its humility, it's based on, it's a Medrash Tehillim, based on the Pasuk in Tehillim. It says, Lama taratztun haram gavnunim. Why do you run askance, you haughty mountains, you great mountains? Why do you make yourself so great? And the Medrash says that that's why Hashem picked Sinai. And Sinai was the most humble, it was the smallest mountain. But the question is, if Hashem wanted to give us a Torah on humility, why give it in a mountain at all? Why not give the Torah to us in a valley? A valley is even more humble. And that's one of the biggest questions of, like, the paradox of arrogance, of pride and humility. And even more so, if, like, we'll get to this soon. So, and then not only that, to name the Parsha Behar, name it Sinai. Name the Parsha, the next word is Sinai, or Har Sinai, just Har, just mountain and arrogance. And so we go into this question of what are we supposed to be fully humble? And we learn that we're actually, there's a debate in the Gemara, and the Gemara goes back and forth and says how bad arrogance is, how any amount of arrogance is terrible. And then the Gemara continues, I've brought this in the past, but there's a whole back and forth. And finally, the Gemara says that a Talmud Chacham should have an eighth of arrogance. A little bit of arrogance is needed for, like, the kavod of Torah. It's Masechet Sota 5a, where it goes all about pride and whether it's good or not. They say there's an advantage to having a small amount of pride. And so we learn that there's a balance, and so that we have some confidence and be able to withstand the challenges of life when people try to get us down. If you're nothing, if you're a valley, you're going to be trampled over. You're never going to be able to overcome the anti-Semites. Who say anything to you. And you want to be joyful. If you feel like a nobody, you're not going to be joyful in serving Hashem, etc. So how do we balance this? If arrogance was just described as being the evil of evil, and especially we had this question in Pesach. Remember, we had this question. We said that Pesach is all about matzah, because chametz is ego, and ego is the source of all negativity. Ego is, it's all me, it's not Hashem, like we were just saying in Shemitah and Yovel. And so the name Behar and Shemitah are actually the exact same message. So we have this idea of why, if matzah is the ultimate being humble, and chametz is puffed up arrogance, why don't we have matzah all year? Why do we have fluffy challahs all year? And we learn that the ultimate is actually not to remain a matzah all the time. You can't live if you're always fully humble. If you're a valley, if you're a matzah, that's not why we're here. We can't withstand the challenges. We have to be proud. If you don't believe in yourself, why would others believe in you? If you have to be proud of your Judaism, proud of the gifts Hashem gave you. However, all of that has to be based on the ultimate foundation of humility. And so ultimately what we're trying to be is a har, a mountain, that's based on humility. And Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us this. The question about Moshe Rabbeinu is, he was the humblest man on the face of earth. Who wrote that pasuk in the Torah? Moshe. He wrote about himself, I am the humblest man on the face of earth, right? He also wrote that there was no one as great as Moshe. There was no Navi as great as Moshe. There was no prophet as great as Moshe. There was no leader as great as Moshe. So he's writing, there was no one as great as me in history, and I'm the humblest man. How was he able to be both, the greatest man? How could Moshe actually be humble to think that he's the most, not just humble, the most humble person, but the greatest leader that would ever exist, the greatest person? He spoke to God directly. And we learn that actually his humility, his greatness and humility didn't contradict one another. It was the opposite. The more great he was, the more humble it made him. The more Hashem gave him, because his greatness, he knew all that he was. It's not like he knew how great he was. He knew he was the only one who spoke to Hashem face to face, but he knew that it wasn't me. It was all on the foundation of total humility. He said, none of it's me. It's all from Hashem. And the more great he is, the more small he felt. He felt, if Hashem had given this gift, this power to someone else, to my brother Aaron, or to anyone else in the world, they would do a better job at leading the Jewish people than me. And so while he knew all the greatness Hashem had given him, he was humbled by it. I'm humbled by all that you gave me. And so his greatness didn't make him arrogant. It made him even more humble, because it was all on the premise of recognizing that none of it is me. It is all from Hashem. And so we begin, I call it the Rambam sandwich, which is the foundation of Bittul, which is total humility and surrender. And this is like the Nisan ER Sivan paradox. Nisan is, I'm nothing. It's all from Hashem. Hashem took me out. I am nobody. Hashem is the one who is everything. I'm just a matzah. I'm just a vessel. I'm a lamb. Whatever we spoke about in Nisan. And then comes Iyar, which is developing myself. The whole month of Iyar is working on my midos, figuring out my strengths. What are the gifts Hashem gave me? Iyar, every week through the spheres of Omer, I'm building up who is the me that I can serve Hashem with, but not because I'm so great. What is the greatness Hashem gave me so that I can not use it for myself, but so that I can use it to light up the world and to make the world brighter? I can't light up the world if I'm a nobody. How could a nobody light up the world? How could a nobody enter Sivan into this marriage with a God, into a partnership committed to be a partner with Hashem, to bring Hashem's light and to elevate all of creation and all of the earth, and to bring unique light that only I can bring into the world if I have nothing to give? If I have nothing to give, I'm not going to give anybody. I have to know and be empowered with all of the unique gifts that Hashem gave me and every one of you that no one else can replicate. You have to identify what is the unique godly light and gift and that you have that no one else can ever do the same as, because that's the fact that you're alive today and that you're born means that there is a light that you have that no one else has. There's no two humans that look alike, I always say, and there's no two neshamos that are the same, no two souls that have the same powers. And so we have to have our greatness. We have to be a Behar. And that's why the Parsha, we'll get to in a moment, but the ultimate goal is to know all the greatness Hashem imbued inside of you, but to know that it's not me, it's not my greatness, not to know that I am so awesome because I worked the land and I made this business and I worked so much effort and I'm so awesome and that's why my program was so successful, or I'm so smart, that's why people came to this event, or I'm so successful. It's to know that Hashem has given me all of these gifts in order, because I owe it to the world to bring that back to the world, and it's based on the foundation of Sinai. And so the Har comes on top of Sinai. It comes on the foundation of total humility, total surrender, that I know that it's from Hashem, and therefore all the greatness that I have doesn't make me more arrogant. It makes me full of Hashem's greatness. I am just a walking vehicle of Hashem's blessing and Hashem's light flowing through me. Like the ultimate hay that we keep saying, that I'm just a vessel to receive and then transmit Hashem's greatness. I'm that vessel of greatness. And so the ultimate greatest person can say, I am so awesome. And if you had my awesomeness, you might even be doing a better job. But I am awesome, not because of me, because Hashem is sending his awesomeness through me. How could I deny the spark of God that's inside of me? I carry a piece of Hashem inside of me. And so the ultimate balance of humility and pride could somehow are opposites, but they can coexist. I can have a Har Sinai, even those two words could seem to be a paradox. But I am a paradox. I'm a paradox of humility and proud of the light and greatness Hashem put inside of me. And through that, true pride, and we need to balance the two. So yeah, were you going to add something? Yeah. Arrogance, negative arrogance. Negative arrogance, and it's puffed up, is I am so great. I'm in charge of my life. When I'm successful, it's me. When I fail, it's me. When I mess up, it's because I messed up. And forgetting that to be the hay, the opening from above, that everything is from Hashem.
So you're implying there's good arrogance?
Yeah, the good arrogance is that it's not, the good pride is I'm proud of not myself, I'm proud of the godliness Hashem sent through me. So that takes us to the question, why call the Parsha Behar and not Sinai? Because the ultimate goal is to be a consistent Har, a strong Har, a real Har, someone who has fake arrogance. They're going to say I'm so great, but the minute someone is greater than me and better than me, I'm squashed. The ultimate goal is to be, when you're a real Har, when you're light and your great pride comes from not from me, but from Hashem, it never wavers. It's consistent like a mountain. It's a strong, consistent, unwavering sense of Hashem's pride. When the second an anti-Semite comes or someone says, you Jews, I'm not wavered because it's not me. I'm not building it on something, my intelligence. It's based on something that's infinite. It's based on humility. It's based on surrender and acknowledgement and waking up and saying, Moda'ani, this is not for me. And so someone greater than me comes and gives a better shiur than me, or is prettier than me, or smarter than me, or more intelligent than me. I'm not threatened. I don't get this spiral of anxiety if my belief is that it's from Hashem, because Hashem is infinite. If it's my resources, very, very, very limited, right? The second someone's greater than me, my pride goes out the window. My arrogance is not real. But when it's Hashem who's supplying me with that light, then I understand and I'm not threatened if someone else is doing the same exact thing as me, next to me, better than me. I'm not worried that they'll take my parnasa or take my people or take my followers or my students or my customers or my clients. They're not going to take what's mine, because it's based on the understanding that Hashem is an infinite supply of channeling exactly what I need to me when I need it. The people there's no one that belongs to me. I don't own anybody, right? And with that understanding, I'm not threatened. I can just keep reminding myself that no one is taking what's mine. I have this supply from Hashem. Hashem. It's unending, it's unwavering. Because you're great doesn't make me less great, because my greatness is not from me, it's from an endless, infinite supply of Hashem's infinity that I house within me. It also can help, okay, that's another thing, the story that this connects to, and that's what will tie back to Shemitah. I love saying the story about Reb Zusha, the famous chassid. You remember the story where every morning he would wake up and say, Hashem, he was very poor, he had nothing, and he had a shamish, a helper that would get him food every morning. And after davening, he would look up to Shemayim and he would say, Hashem, dein yingele, dein zun Zusha is hungry. Can you please get me something to eat? And then the shamash would come and bring him breakfast. And every day he would just look up to heaven and say, Hashem, give me food. And one day the shamash had enough. He said, I'm not doing this charade of telling to Hashem and saying, Hashem, I'm hungry, give me food. I'm giving you food. Obviously he said thank you, but he's like, it's me, not, let's just be real here. So that day he says, I'm not going to bring him breakfast. So Zusha looks up to heaven and says, Hashem, dein yingele, dein zun, your son is hungry. Can you please give me something to eat? And the shamash is like, we're going to kill him. He's smiling, he's smug. There's a knock at the door. And someone comes in and says, we had a bris and we had some leftover food. We figured Reb Zusha might want it. And he brings in the food. And at that moment, the shamash recognized that that Hashem was bringing Reb Zusha the food every day. And he was merely the channel and the conduit for that light to come through. He was merely that blessing, that channel and that vessel. It wasn't coming from me. I thought it was me and was coming from Hashem. But we obviously don't do that. And that's what Shemitah is really all about. Ultimately, we're not like Zusha. We don't just sit there and say, Hashem, give me my sustenance. Because to do that, you have to be like Reb Zusha, to 100% believe and see and know that the channels are coming directly from God. Hashem tells us exactly what we do. How do we receive our sustenance? For 6 years. Hashem doesn't say the 7th year you should rest. He first says for 6 years you should work the land. This is the way I want my channels to come to you. I want you to make your own vessel for it. I want you to make a channel for my blessings. I want you to not separate from the earth and just pray to God. I want you to, for 6 years, work and be involved in the land. Be involved in your portion of the world. Whatever it is that gifts Hashem gave you, explore what those are, those Behar, those powers that God gave you, and utilize those to make a channel for my blessings. But know at the same time that you can work really hard. Someone could work way harder than you and be less successful, and someone could work way less than you and be more successful. Your success and the blessings that ultimately come through are directly from Hashem. Your channels are just a vessel, so you can create a vessel for the blessing, but whether your success is not because of how hard you worked and how hard you didn't work. You're working the best you can, and ultimately Hashem, the more we relinquish control and understand that what I'm doing is just a vessel for Hashem to give me the light and the blessings however He sees fit. I might make a vessel to receive my blessing one way, and then Hashem will send it another way. That doesn't matter. My job is to be, Hashem wants us to be a partner with Him in creation and turn the physical in this world into spirituality by utilizing and working with the physical world around us and all the jobs that you guys literally do and creating a channel for His blessings. But the danger is that after 6 years of putting in effort and Hashem giving you blessing, and especially the farmer or someone who puts in all this effort and he's like, I'm planting and then I'm being so successful, there's a danger of him feeling that this is my success, of the negative arrogance creeping in, and this is my success, this is my efforts, taking Hashem out of the picture. I actually heard the Rebbe say that Shabbos is our reminder that Hashem created the world. We remember who's the one who created the world. And Shemitah reminds us that Hashem is continuing to be the one sustaining the world. Because some people think the Avodah Zarah began with Hashem created the world, but now I'm the one running the day-to-day of my life. Hashem made me, obviously. Hashem created me, creates new life. But the day-to-day, it's up to me to make sure that I get what I need. If I don't work hard, I do have to work hard, but if I don't do this and this and this exactly this way, I won't have my blessing. And that's very dangerous because we start to take things onto our own shoulders, and Hashem is like, okay, you got it, right? Hashem reacts to us in the way that the more we give it over to Hashem, the more Hashem is forced to just take over. And the more we take it on our shoulders, Hashem is like, okay, you have it. I'll work on other stuff. I'll put my efforts into shidduchim and those things. And so the danger is that we turn to our own channels and we believe that it's our channels after 6 years. And my resources are very limited. My channels are not infinite. And when I turn that channel to me and not to turn it out of God, that's very dangerous. And that's why every 7th year, when the land is its weakest, it says the land is its weakest, our emunah, right? Hashem is like, let go. I want you to know that even though you're working and I'm giving you blessing, because the only reason you're getting blessing in your work is because I told you to work, and that will be the blessing, that will be the channel and the vessel to receive the work. Every 7th year, we need that visual reminder. That's what challah is as well, right? Challah is taking a piece and saying it's all from Hashem. But you need this visual, visceral, bodily reminder in the land that miraculously, when the land is at its weakest, because it's been worked for 6 years without a break, it will somehow, in its weakest year, produce enough produce for lasting you until the 8th year grows, like almost 2.5 years. of produce, and sometimes 3.5. It's insane. And that's remembering that that's the connection of Behar, and recognizing that our sense of flow is that this like abundance. The more I relinquish control, the more great I feel, the true greatness I feel. I feel awesome, infinitely great. Nothing can tear me down. When my emunah and my greatness as a Jew and my pride as a Jew is because of Hashem and something infinite, and because of my understanding that Hashem has my back, nothing will tear me down. And so the more humble I am, the more great I actually feel. And that's what Shemitah is. The more I relinquish control, the greater I actually feel. That's what Yovel is. I'm not even going to talk, I didn't have a chance to get into Yovel. There's two opinions. I'll go very, very short. Yovel says there's two opinions. One is to humble you. When someone thinks they're so great, this is all mine property, it's like, no, it all belongs to Hashem, return it. That's one, a big opinion, a famous opinion, the Ralbag. And the Chinuch, the Chinuch says that it's to humble you, to not feel like you control your destiny. It's to humble you, remind you how small you are. And the Ralbag says the opposite. He says a person might feel destitute. He had to sell his property. He feels hopeless. He feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I had to sell my body. And so the Yovel is actually to empower him to know that at the end of the day, everything will be returned to him. He doesn't have to be hopeless. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel to keep him spirit up even when he's in his lowest state. And so they seem to contradict, but the Rebbe says they're actually the exact same thing, right? And really, we need to know at which point of my life I need to have more humility to surrender, and at which point I need to have more of that pride, that empowerment that Hashem will take care of me. Everything from Hashem is good. Hashem will pick me up again. Everything will return to me, even if I feel hopeless, like, how could I ever buy a house in this climate? It's insane. And I feel that hopelessness a lot. And I'm like, oh, the last house there's no more houses. That's it. I can go back to that remembrance that Hashem has an achuzah. We each have our place. Hashem will take care of us. Hashem will find everyone at home as he always has. And that's okay, like to trust in something greater than what the market says. It's really hard to relinquish that control. And so they're both the same. Humility and arrogance are like two, like, and holy pride. Let's call it holy pride. Holy pride is pride sustained by the humility. That the more I relinquish control, the more full and great and empowered I feel from that blessing that comes from, not from me, but from something greater than me. Takeaway. What do we take away from this? There's the joke that says that a husband and wife are always arguing, and one day he says, to his friend, we finally resolved it. I'm in charge of all the big things. My son's in charge of little things. All the decisions, who should be president, climate control, all that. The day-to-day things, how we're going to run our house, where we're going to go on vacation, what we're going to eat, where our kids are going to school. My wife runs that. And that's that reminder that sometimes we feel like Hashem, the big things, Hashem runs, right? Like the main things in life, that's up to Hashem. But the day-to-day things, I have to take care of that. And we can relinquish that control and deepen our trust that every tiny detail of our life, Hashem is taking care of as well. Then we hand it over to Hashem and we experience the greatest great. Last thought, the Rebbe says that just like the 6th year is the weakest, and you ask, in the Torah it says, you will ask, what is the question? How will the 6th year, when the land is weakened after 6 years, it's not the strongest. It's strongest in the first year after Shemitah because it's rested. It's weakest in the 6th year. How will that sustain us for 6 years? The Rebbe said that the 7-year cycles are compared, the world that we live in Kabbalah, is compared to a 7 millennia. It says, for Hashem created the world in 7 days, and each day of creation connects to 1,000 millennia of our existence. And the world is going to exist for 7 millennia. Anyways, we're in the 6th millennia right now of creation, because we're in the year 5785. So we're in the 6th millennia right now. And now we're in the year before Shemitah, and we're supposed to somehow, in this weakest year, same question, we're in the lowest year, but we're meant to be the ones, it says, to bring Mashiach, because the 6th millennia is like Erev Shabbos. And how are we in the weakest state that we've ever been? Because we usually read this Hadoros, but the land gets weakened and weakened as we leave, right? And we get from the revelation of God. We know we're at the lowest state. Look at the state of the world. We feel so disconnected from our land, from our everything. And somehow we're meant to be the ones that are going to bring Mashiach. And the Rebbe says, V'nasati birchasi. It's the same way that the land, when you think it's at its weakest state, houses within it the power to sustain you for 3 years with its resources. Also, we, the ones who seem to be the weakest at the outside, after years of being in Gullus, we're not. We're actually the ones who have the strength to carry us through and to carry this generation into the era of Mashiach. It's very empowering. We seem weak, but we're actually one of the strongest. We have resilience, we are empowered, and we are imbued. You can see what's happening in the world right now after how we react to every tragedy, how the families react. It's like it's unfathomable. It says the generations before Moshe Rabbeinu looked at our generation, and he was shaking. when he saw what would happen in our generation, he said, I wouldn't survive a day in this generation. And so our generation is the strongest, and we're the ones who Hashem gave the koach to bring Mashiach. May we see it very, very soon in our days. May we feel rooted to our neshama, present in our bodies, connected to our soul, connected to our land, find our achuzah, have our roots planted, have a strong foundation, a support system, and all have our place in Eretz Yisrael, wherever we might be, to have that land and that connection. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you next week. If you like this, it means the world to me when you leave a comment or even a like and you share it with your friends. And if you'd like to sponsor a shiur, please hit me up.